It is truly an honor to see you here. This is one of the most impactful readings that you will ever experience, and I'll tell you why. Unlike a typical reading that begins once the cards are laid out, the divinatory tools, in this case the runes, are revealed. This reading actually begins the moment that my foot hits the ground. The moment that I begin to engage with nature, messages begin to channel through. And as you will see, this integrative approach allows for a deeper wisdom to be shared. What you will find is that this message specifically is very tied into the elements of the journey, the elements of sacrifice, the elements of transition, and the elements of new growth, of planting the seeds for what is yet to come. This is the foundation of this reading because the messages for that energy was already coming through before I even began to cast the runes. And when we got to the point where the runes were cast, 3 of those 4 energetic signatures presented with the runes themselves. Make yourself comfortable, enjoy the ambiance, enjoy the scenery, open your senses, and allow yourself to receive the information that is most needed for you at this time. As this is a general reading, you are reminded that if it does not resonate for you at this time, it is not meant for you. If it does resonate and you find value in what is shared here, I would greatly appreciate if you left comments in the section below this video discussing what was so relevant for you and why it held such impact. This helps me fine-tune my craft in understanding the ways that I translate the information that comes through me, the way that I connect with nature and the runes, to help deliver information that will guide you along your journey. One more side note. This is considered a timeless reading, and what that means is that the information delivered is cosmic and universal. So that wherever you are on your journey, when the message is needed, this video will find you, and the information that is relayed and delivered will resonate in some very profound way, confirming or moving you forward on a path where you had uncertainty or you just needed to felt heard and honored. That is the beauty of these kind of messages. And every message is unique and divinely guided. So check in, make sure that what is unfolding actually holds resonance for you, and then act accordingly. That is what I will say. The jets flying over have distracted me. So let's get into nature and find out how this is going to land for you. This rune reading today is a message from your higher self. And as I was coming out and getting ready for this reading and the space, I found it important to note that this is the doorway that we are entering through to collect this message. This branch has come off of the tree that it belongs to and is stuck now here for the time being. But it's significant because, like many thresholds, you feel an energetic exchange. So what we know on this side of this threshold versus what we know on the other side of it, as well as what we will know when we come back this way, is subject to energetic impact. A tear fell as I was saying that. So already, without even having set things up emotionally, it means that there's something in the subtle body. Your higher self wants you to know that there's something in the subtle body that should be looking for or embracing these kind of portals, these kind of doorways for change and expansion. And it is okay to release and allow things as you need to along the journey. The wisdom of the body is very, very paramount for this reading. Paying attention to thresholds and doorways, the step that will change things for the better. So without further messages at this point, I'm actually going to flip the camera again so that we can see the doorway as we move through it, and then we'll get set up. The other thing to note for this reading, now that I'm on this side of it, I can actually see that that's the very edge of the limb, suspended above the ground. So that is telling me that even in the fall, the community that will be there to hold you, that will be there to help with the transitions, is important. That you will never actually hit rock bottom. It may feel like it because where you came from was so elevated, but it's only a perspective shift. It is only a perspective shift. This is not the loss of everything, just a perspective shift. Reminder and notification that looking down and looking up will give you various perspectives. Not what I meant to show you by looking down, but have. And that's the greatest thing that mushrooms have taught me over the last 2 years that I've been coming to these trails. When you see one, you will likely see many, many more. So the energy for this reading, the higher self, even before we get the runes out, is talking very much about being open to seeing things from a new perspective. The reason I came back on briefly before we got set up was to let you know that I do have sacred adornment pieces available in my shop. Many of them have crystal allies, and all of them are made with natural fibers that have been hand dyed by a local artisan. All of the pieces that I create are energetically charged and infused in nature. They all have intentions and stories. It is one way that you can help anchor and modify your energy. It is like having a tool for the altar of your life, if you consider that your body is your most important altar of living. Check more information in the description box. So this is where I was going to go for our reading, down that slope, but it looks like one of our friends has fallen. More than just a branch, we have an entire tree that has collapsed. This time of year, it is quite common for the weather that we have here. So as it pertains to your reading, to this reading, what your higher self wants you to know is that loss, transitions, are a necessary part of the cycle. And the reason that loss is coming through so much is because it is so much easier to see when something has been sacrificed or lost. In this case, an entire tree being down, a large limb creating a new doorway. But it's the same thing when you think about someone gets a haircut and drastically their appearance is very different. The opposite side of this energy, however, the energy of ingwas, right? The energy of the seed. We've got potential for upward growth and downward growth. We've got the potential for expanding and radiating and filling up space. That energy takes more time to come into fruition. So loss feels more devastating at times because we have something to compare it to, a past experience. Whereas with Ingwa's energy, every time a tree falls, the birds are very active. And on a spiritual level, we think of birds as messengers to spirit, right? So as I'm approaching this tree, and this is the second time this has happened this season, these are kinglet, gold-crowned kinglets, very active around newly fallen trees. So when we think about the energy of messengers to spirit, messengers to the higher realms, there's something about the diffusion of life, the transmutation of energy, really, from a physical state back to an energetic state, that evokes and welcomes this kind of celebration. That's really what the kinglets feel like when they come through. There's another video that I'll be sharing. I'll link that somehow in this, but significant for this reading today, since we're talking about transitions and we're talking about perspectives and all of this stuff, and we haven't even got to the runes yet. I was talking about the seed energy is harder to see because with the seed energy, we have a forgetting, the great amnesia, where we don't remember what has come before. In this way, we are more apprehensive of what is to come because it takes longer for the sprouts to surface, to come up out of the darkness of the soil and be evident and make themselves known. That is a lot of what's happening with your energy right now for those of you who are connecting with messages for your higher self from the runes. The final thing I will say for this little clip is that the runes are very deeply connected to the natural world. And so when I'm out doing these walks, what I've noticed is that from an embodied state of working with the runes, you start to see their energetic signature and frequency in many ways, not just by seeing the symbol come out. So the readings from now on for this channel are likely to be a little more developed in that sense. The weather will determine how often I'm able to continue getting out to do the readings in nature, but to the best of my ability, I will do them outside as much as I can for reasons just. It took like 2 steps and then more information came through. So I don't know, I guess these are like vlog style readings now. Let me know what you think of this delivery method. But what came through is on our way in, we went under the branch, right? So there's a process of going under. And now, in order to continue our journey, we have to go over. And so, this process, seeing the different perspectives, it's a lot about remembering that each step along your journey will look different. And that is precisely by design. Not getting too attached to one way of being or one way of seeing is going to be really important for you. With that, I'm also just going to honor this stump real quick. Just like layers of sand in the desert, soil building upon itself, the heartwood, the outer skin, the bark. So many phases, so many ways of being. Thank you, beautiful tree, for all that you gave. And thank you for all you will continue to provide. The journey, Rido, is so, so important in understanding the value of all of it. You also have others who are witnessing your transitions, are very deeply connected, and are helping you along your path. So this is from your higher self, is telling you to remember to connect into your spirit guides, those who are in this world but not of this world, who have different capacity and different limitations in order to interact with the physical plane. So much information is available to you when you actually begin to attune to nature. So welcome to the layout for your reading. Of note, this location, we have a feather. I was first drawn to the one that had fallen down here on the floor. And as I was setting up, using this fallen log as our space, honoring the transitions of life because that was so prominent in the opening of this reading. And this is one of our guides for this particular message. So, thank you, beings and energy, for holding space for this reading. We will now take a look at the runic energy to see what the actual message is from your higher self that is needed at this time. I just looked and we actually have Ingwas came out, and it is very close to Gabo. Oh, this is a good one. There's so much in this reading. Okay, so because I was feeling the Ingwas energy earlier, we can start with that one just because it was already coming through. So this is our seed energy, the roots below, the sprouts that go above, and the internal fire that radiates and circulates internally to create both experiences. Next to it was Gebo, so reciprocity, fair give and take, exchange of energy. But next to them was both Tiwas and Nauthas. So we have a sense and understanding of justice and the importance of sacrifice for the purpose of mutual benefit. So very much tied in with Gebo, we have the Tiwas energy. So sacrifice for personal gain is very different than sacrifice for the gain of the community. And the idea that's coming through is we would want to give the best of the best, not the scraps, and say that we've made the sacrifice. So oftentimes when you're looking at your practices and you're saying, well, yes, of course I'm giving, but what are you giving? And what are you expecting in return? Because if it's not balanced, if there's not a genuine giving of something that is nourishing and worth sharing, the returns on it, the seed that you're planting, will be quite diminished. So with this energy also is Nauthis. So Nauthis is very much about what is necessary. It's the fate, the threads of fate that tie everything together. So this, your higher self, is really asking you to zoom out and look at the bigger picture of how your personal actions are impacting the larger whole. Next to it, we also had Algies. So Algies is all about protection. What this is leading to and building upon is an understanding that the protection is there even when it doesn't feel like it. So much like we've seen previously in the walk to this location, your higher self is wanting to understand that the process of the journey is always protected. It is the egoic self, the identity that we create in order to fit into a given story, that oftentimes will convince us one way or the other that things are not working out for us or that things have been happening to us. So this energy that's coming out is really asking you to take full ownership and agency of your path and your journey. This is very much a key to remembering your power. Your higher self wants you to know that you are far more powerful than you are giving yourself credit for. But I believe at the beginning of the journey out here, I also talked about the great amnesia. So understand that some of the journey, your higher self is wanting you to know that it was necessary to forget certain things in order to come to an old piece of information as if for the first time. So this is calling in a childlike wonder. The energy of something for the very first time is very different than the energy of something when we expect it to happen again and again and again. So can you hold the miracle for the same thing when it presents time and time again? And this is where you often hear people talk about gratitude practices. If gratitude is too hard to think about, shift it to appreciation. Can you appreciate what you already have? Can you appreciate what works and what is lifting you up and what is building you? So playing with those energies and really learning how to shift perspectives is going to help you tremendously through this journey that you're on. Now, I found it very interesting because Perthro has not come out in a very long time. I've been doing a lot of readings these days, and Perthro has been kind of hidden in the background, so it's very interesting that Perthro is coming out. This is all about the unknown, the great darkness, the great mystery of life. And from the unknown is how we build what it is that we are growing, if that makes sense. The next steps that we're going to take for this reading are actually quite clustered, and this indicates to me that there's going to be a sense for you of going through it before you realize what you have achieved. So your higher self, again, with a perspective, is asking you to really shine the light on what it is you're doing. And this is because we have Sewelo. Sewelo is the sun. So illumination on what is unknown, revealing what has been hidden, coming to it again from a perspective where you actually have not just a new understanding, but the full understanding. That moment in life where all of the pieces come together and it finally makes sense. So going back again to the appreciation for the steps and the journey. We will look at this one in a minute because it came on its side, but we'll proceed for right now with the rest that have been up and fully open. So we have Dagas, which is all about transitions, twilight and dusk being the main themes associated with this energy. And then on top of it, we have auras. Then we have Othala, Berkana, and Kenaz. So all of these are very, very fantastic. And it leads to Manas, which is the one that was on its side. Okay, so shedding light on the unknown, understanding that this is cosmic light. This is light that infuses all life at some point, the spark of life, if you will. Dagaz is about the transitions, Uruz is about creation, Othala is about heritage and legacy. So when we come back to the root, the key to the start of your reading, what you're doing is legacy building in some capacity. Your higher self wants you to understand that that is why some of this feels so frustrating, is because you are doing things that other people in your communities at this point along their journey are unwilling to do. Therefore, it's feeling a bit isolating. But this is the reminder that it's very nourishing energy, and all of this work that's going into it, your personal fire, your personal torch, all of it, if done with integrity, is leading you to a new sense of community. And the reason I say with integrity is because this one was on its side. So much like we've seen in the beginning of this reading, there will be a lot of moments where things will catch you by surprise. They will feel serendipitous. They will feel monumental, but only to you. Those around you may not be capable yet of understanding the value of what you're experiencing, and your higher self wants you to know it is because your journey is unique. And when you tap into the keys of making sure that everything is reciprocal and balanced, that is what is going to unlock the unknown, shine light on it, and allow you to move through the transitions in a very creative way. So it's important to point out that for this reading, you have celestial light with the sun and personal light with Kenaz. You have celestial creation with Obras and what would be more of an earth level or terrestrial creation with Berkana. So, and in between these, so look, the celestial pieces on this side of legacy, the more human, the more mundane elements, the more material, physical plane, Midgard, are on this side of Odal. So what you're doing really is transformative. And that is why at times it feels very scary and very unclear. So the message from your higher self, brought to you by the runes and our time in nature today, is to not fear what is presented before you. And in fact, to lean into what feels exciting and what feels expansive about the journey that you're on. One final note about your reading. I closed out before this came in, partly because I was in a position, this is the angle that I'm looking down at these from. And what it did is it created flow. But in this climate, right now, what flow means is a dripping nose. So just like the tear that came out earlier, there's paying attention to these cues, understanding that yes, it is part of just my physical experience being in this environment. What it is connecting to in the energy of this reading is allowing yourself to be the way that you need to be. And the reason that it's important to say that at this point before concluding your reading is because I came out with a couple different complement stones. These, in this reading, this is the complement. So we have blue lace agate, which is very much about communication. The fact that that is the stone that wanted to come out and aid us in this reading, compared to the others that I have as my standard set of 3 to cycle through, in addition to the stooping energy and then the release and the draining, culminating all of it together, the reason that message is important is because there will be times when you will feel the need to have composure. For example, if I had said, well, hold on guys, my nose is running, I need to stop to blow it. What would that have changed in the reading, in the experience, the delivery of this message, versus just powering through and then ending the message so that I could take care of what was happening and then coming back to do this as an afterthought. The energetics behind it is slightly different. It's important that it's done and everything is always in the right time. And that, I think, is the final example, the final statement for this reading. Everything that we've had so far about the going back and forth, like the big picture, little picture, all of that energy, that's what they were saying about it's always in the right time. So in the moment, sometimes when you're feeling it and you're going through it and you're processing, that is not necessarily the time to be speaking or delivering. You will know when is the right time to be speaking and delivering. It is when you know that you should be speaking and delivering and you choose not to, that you are violating a sense of self. That is what your higher self does not want you to do any longer. So yes, take the breaks, take the pauses, compose in the way, create in the way that is comfortable and meaningful to you, but always honor the message that needs to come through, the interactions that are meant to be built. That is the truest form of strength when it comes to your development. So at this point, I would like to thank your guides, my guides, the runes, and nature herself for everything that has been presented in this reading today. Sending you connection and love until next reading. Welcome to those of you who found enough value to actually engage in the postscript edition of this reading. When energy moves through you, it's really important to understand what that energy is telling you and how it applies to the particular situation that is unfolding for you. Meaning is always derived based off of context. So one of the things that came to me later after having left the space and the time where the energy was flowing through, I realized a couple things that are important to share for further integration of everything that was delivered for your reading. You would not have seen this because of the way that I moved through the trail, but I later learned, after having time to process the energy, that the branch that we saw at the beginning did indeed belong to the crown of the tree that had fallen. And that context is important because it speaks to the power of the subtle bodies, our intuition. That tear that came out at the beginning is far more significant now that I have put all the pieces together. And at the end of the reading, one of the things that I talked about was the importance of following your process. So understanding that sometimes there is a difference between being in the process of something, being in the energy of it, and flowing with it, and only being able to come to a certain perspective once you have been in a different environment, a different energetic state, to be able to understand all of the pieces. That was very much the case for this reading. And because of the way that it played out for me, as the person delivering the message, I also felt it important to come back and relay, those two words wanted to come out at the same time, the understanding that came through when I realized that that was indeed one tree that had fallen. What this speaks to is that when we are going through experiences in life, sometimes we will only have piecemeal versions of it, and we will have strong visceral reactions without understanding logically why this is the case. So this reading, everything in it, all of the information that talked about bringing this celestial energy, the transition, even with the kinglets coming in and the transmutation of energy from a physical to a non-physical, this is highly important for this reading because it's asking you to dive deeper into your practices with your subtle body. And it's also reminding you that this takes practice and it takes time. Being able to put the pieces together is not always possible in the moment. So that's the postscript for this reading. If you have found this helpful, please let me know in the comments. And if you would value a personal reading, check the description box as I am opening up my calendar to do one-to-one readings. The information can be found below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at future readings.